The Vice President said tonight, he said it many, many times, that your tax cut benefits the top 1% of the wealthiest Americans, and you've heard what he said.
Of course it does. If you pay taxes, you're going to get a benefit. People who pay taxes will get tax relief.
Why shouldn't they?
Well, let me finish, please. Under my plan, if you make the wealthy people pay 62% of the taxes today. Afterwards, they pay 64%. This is a fair plan. You know why? Because the tax code is unfair for people at the bottom end of the economic ladder. If you're a single mother making $22,000 a year today, and you're trying to raise 2 children, for every additional dollar you earn, you pay a higher marginal rate on that dollar than someone making $200,000, and it's not right. So I want to do something about that.
All right, Vice President Gore.
Look, this isn't about Governor Bush. It's not about me. It is about you. And I want to come back to something I said before. If you want somebody who believes that we were better off 8 years ago than we are now, and that we ought to go back to the kind of policies that we had back then, emphasizing tax cuts mainly for the wealthy, here is your man. If you want somebody who will fight for you and who will fight to have middle-class tax cuts, then I am your man. I want to be. Now, I doubt anybody here makes more than $330,000 a year. I won't ask you. But if you do, you're in the top 1%.
It would be a violation of the rules. They couldn't.
I'm not going to ask. But if everyone here in this audience was dead on in the middle of the middle class, then the tax cuts for every single one of you all added up would be less than the tax cut his plan would give to just one member of that top wealthiest 1%. Now you judge for yourselves whether or not that's fair.
Quick, and then we're moving on.
Good. 50 million Americans get no tax relief under his plan.
That's not right.
You may not be one of them. You're just not one of the right people. And secondly, we've had enough fighting. It's time to unite. You talk about 8 years. In 8 years, they haven't gotten anything done on Medicare, on Social Security, a patient's Bill of Rights.
All right.
It's time to get something done.
Hey, we're going to move on.
I've got to answer that, Jim. Medicare, I cast the tie-breaking vote to add 26 years to the life of Medicare. It was due to go bankrupt in 1999. And that 50 million figure, again, the newspapers, I said, you said forget the journalists, but they are the keepers of the scorecard and whether or not you're using facts that aren't right. And that fact is just not right.
Speaking of keepers of the scorecard, that's what I'm trying to do here, Mr. Vice President, Governor Bush. We're going to move on. We're going to have to move on. All right, there were 12 questions on foreign and military matters, and the first one that we're going to ask will be directed to you, Governor Bush, and David Norwood is going to ask it. Mr. Norwood, where are you? There you are.
What would make you the best candidate in office during the Middle East crisis?
I've been a leader. I've been a person who has to set a clear vision and convince people to follow. I got a strategy for the Middle East. And first let me say that our nation now needs to speak with one voice during this time, and I applaud the President for working hard to diffuse tensions. Our nation needs to be credible and strong. When we say we're somebody's friend, everybody's got to believe it. Israel's our friend, and we'll stand by Israel. We need to reach out to modern Arab nations as well, to build coalitions to keep the peace. I also need the next leader needs to be patient. We can't put the Middle East peace process on our timetable. It's got to be on the timetable of the people that we're trying to bring to the peace table. We can't dictate the terms of peace, which means that you have to be steady. You can't worry about polls or focus groups. You've got to have a clear vision. That's what a leader does. A leader also understands that the United States must be strong to keep the peace. Saddam Hussein still is a threat in the Middle East. Our coalition against Saddam is unraveling. The sanctions are loosened. He's a man who may be developing weapons of mass destruction. We don't know because inspectors aren't in. So to answer your question, it requires a clear vision, a willingness to stand by our friends, and the credibility for people, both friend and foe, to understand when America says something, we mean it.
Vice President Gore?
I see a future when the world is at peace with the United States of America, promoting the values of democracy and human rights and freedom all around the world. Even in Iran, they have had an election that began to bring about some change. We stand for those values, and we have to be willing to assert them. Right now, our military is the strongest in the entire history of the world. I pledge to you I will do whatever is necessary to make sure that it stays that way. Now, what can I bring to that challenge? When I was a young man, my father was a senator opposed to the Vietnam War. When I graduated from college, there were plenty of fancy ways to get out of going and being a part of that. I went and I volunteered, and I went to Vietnam. I didn't do the most or run the gravest risk by a long shot, but I learned what it was like to be an enlisted man in the United States Army. In the Congress, in the House of Representatives, I served on the House Intelligence Committee, and I worked hard to learn the subject of nuclear arms control and how we can defuse these tensions and deal with non-proliferation and deal with the problems of terrorism and these new weapons of mass destruction. Look, we're going to face some serious new challenges in the next 4 years. I've worked on that long and hard. When I went to the United States Senate, I asked for an assignment to the Armed Services Committee. And while I was there, I worked on a bipartisan basis, as I did in the House. I worked with former President Reagan on the modernization of our strategic weaponry. In the Senate, I was one of only 10 Democrats, along with Senator Joe Lieberman, to support Governor Bush's dad in the Persian Gulf War resolution. And for the last 8 years, I've served on the National Security Council. Could I say just one other thing here?
No, sir. We'll get back. The next question is to you. And
fine, I'll wait.
It's a related question. It's going to be asked by Kenneth Allen. Mr. Allen?
I think that he gets oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Go ahead.
Mr. Allen, right there.
Vice President, today our military forces are stretched thinner and doing more than they've ever done before during peacetime. I'd like to know I think we'd all like to know what you, as President, would do to ensure proper resourcing for the current mission and/or more selectively choosing the time and place that our forces will be used around the world. Thank you, sir.
Just to finish briefly, I started to say that for the last 8 years I've been on the National Security Council, and last week I suspended campaigning for 2 days or parts of 2 days to go back and participate in the meetings that charted the President's summit meeting that he just returned from earlier today. And our country's team over there did a great job. It's a difficult situation. The United States has to be strong in order to make sure that we can help promote peace and security and stability. And that means keeping our military strong. Now, I said earlier that we are the strongest military, but we need to continue improving readiness and making sure that our military personnel are adequately paid and that the combination of their pay and their benefits and their retirement as veterans is comparable to the stiff competition that's coming in this strong economy from the private sector. And I have supported the largest pay raise in many a year, and I support another one now. I also support modernization